The restaurant was quiet, elegant, and glowing beneath warm evening lights when Victoria Hayes, the 36-year-old CEO of one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the country, stepped through the doors. She wore a simple navy dress instead of her usual designer business suits, hoping to blend in for once. To the outside world, she had everything: wealth, influence, magazine covers, and a company valued at billions. Yet behind every achievement was a lonely apartment, endless meetings, and birthdays spent answering emails instead of celebrating. Friends constantly reminded her that success meant nothing if she had no one to share it with. After months of refusing, she finally allowed her assistant to arrange one blind date, promising herself it would be her last. Across town, 34-year-old Ethan Carter almost canceled 3 separate times before leaving home. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't famous. He worked as an elementary school history teacher, earning enough to provide a comfortable but modest life for his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. Since losing his wife in a tragic accident 5 years earlier, every decision he made revolved around Lily. Dating had become something that belonged to another lifetime, but his sister insisted that life couldn't remain paused forever. Reluctantly, he agreed to meet someone, assuming nothing serious would come from it. There was only one unexpected complication. The babysitter canceled 20 minutes before he was supposed to leave. He searched every contact in his phone. No one answered. He considered canceling. Lily noticed him pacing. She quietly tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, it's okay. I can come with you. I'll be really good." Ethan hesitated. Taking his daughter to a blind date sounded ridiculous, but canceling again felt unfair to someone who had already reserved time. He called the restaurant. The hostess kindly explained that children were welcome. Embarrassed, but grateful, Ethan brought Lily along, hoping his date wouldn't immediately walk away. Victoria arrived first. She checked her watch. Exactly 7 o'clock. Moments later, Ethan entered, holding Lily's tiny hand. Victoria blinked. A child? This was certainly unexpected. Ethan immediately apologized. "I'm so sorry. My babysitter canceled at the last minute. I completely understand if you'd rather reschedule." Victoria looked at the little girl hiding behind her father's leg. Instead of disappointment, she felt something unfamiliar. Curiosity. "It's all right," she replied gently. "We're already here." Lily smiled shyly. Within minutes, they were seated together. Conversation began awkwardly. Victoria admitted she spent most of her life building companies instead of relationships. Ethan admitted that raising Lily had become both his greatest joy and greatest challenge. For the first time in years, Victoria spoke without worrying about shareholders, investors, or quarterly profits. She laughed. Real laughter. Something she barely recognized anymore. Lily quietly colored pictures while the adults talked. Occasionally, she looked toward Victoria with unusually thoughtful eyes. As dinner continued, Ethan accidentally revealed that he had no idea Victoria was famous. He didn't follow business news. He didn't know her company. He didn't care about her wealth. That simple honesty caught Victoria completely off guard. Nearly everyone she met already knew her net worth before learning her favorite color. Ethan simply treated her like another human being. For Victoria, that felt priceless. Halfway through dinner, Lily suddenly climbed down from her chair. She slowly walked toward Victoria. The restaurant grew strangely quiet. She stopped beside the CEO, looked directly into her eyes, and softly whispered, "You and me." Victoria's smile disappeared instantly. Her entire body froze, because those 3 tiny words had once belonged to someone she had loved more than anything, someone she believed she had lost forever. The entire restaurant faded into silence inside Victoria's mind. You and me. No one else understood why those words mattered. Ethan simply assumed Lily wanted to say something sweet, but Victoria couldn't breathe. 28 years earlier, when Victoria was only 8 years old, she had lived in a small neighborhood before her family moved across the country after her parents divorced. During that difficult year, she had become inseparable from another little girl named Emma. Every afternoon, they built imaginary castles beneath an old maple tree. Whenever they promised to stay best friends forever, they would link their pinky fingers and whisper, "You and me." Only those 3 words. Nothing else. It became their secret promise. Then one day, Victoria's father accepted a new job. The family moved overnight. She never saw Emma again. Years passed. Life became busy. School, college, business, success. But every birthday, Victoria secretly wondered what had happened to her childhood best friend. No one else knew about those words, not even her parents. Yet somehow, this little girl had just spoken them. Victoria looked carefully at Lily. "Sweetheart, where did you hear that?" Lily innocently pointed toward the silver locket around her neck. "My grandma told me." Victoria noticed the tiny heart-shaped pendant. Something about it seemed incredibly familiar. Ethan smiled. "Lily's grandmother raised my late wife after she was adopted." Victoria felt another wave of confusion. Adopted? The pieces still didn't fit. Lily carefully opened the tiny locket. Inside rested an old, faded photograph. Two smiling little girls stood beneath a maple tree. Victoria's heartbeat stopped. One girl wore a yellow sweater. The other had two tiny braids. Victoria recognized both children immediately. One of them was herself. She stared in complete disbelief. Ethan leaned closer. "Do you know them?" Victoria whispered almost silently. "I was one of those girls." Ethan looked stunned. Lily simply smiled as though none of this surprised her. "My grandma always says promises don't disappear." Victoria could barely hold back tears. "Who's your grandmother?" Ethan quietly answered. "Margaret Collins." The name hit Victoria like lightning. Emma Collins. Margaret Collins. Emma's mother. Victoria suddenly realized the impossible truth. Emma had grown up, married, later passed away after a long illness. And Lily was Emma's daughter, the daughter of the little girl who had once promised, "You and me." Victoria's eyes filled with tears she hadn't allowed herself to shed in years. She wasn't sitting across from strangers anymore. Life had quietly reunited two families, separated by nearly 3 decades. But the surprises weren't over, because before Emma passed away, she had left behind one final letter, a letter addressed to Victoria. A week later, Ethan invited Victoria to Margaret Collins' cozy countryside home. The elderly woman greeted Victoria with trembling hands and tear-filled eyes. "I wondered if life would ever bring you back." Victoria embraced her tightly. Neither woman spoke for several minutes. Words weren't enough. Margaret slowly retrieved an old wooden box from a bookshelf. Inside rested faded friendship bracelets, childhood drawings, tiny photographs, and a carefully folded envelope that had yellowed with time. Written across the front were 2 words, "For Victoria." Victoria's hands shook as she unfolded the letter. Emma had written it only months before her passing. She explained how she had searched for Victoria many times, but never found her. She described telling little Lily bedtime stories about the brave girl who always protected her beneath the maple tree. She even taught Lily their secret promise, "You and me." Emma ended the letter with one final request. "If life ever brings you to my daughter, please don't disappear again. She deserves people who choose to stay." Victoria could no longer hold back her tears. She looked toward Lily, who was quietly playing on the living room floor. Without hesitation, Victoria walked over and knelt beside her. "I made your mommy a promise a long time ago." Lily looked up. "Will you keep it now?" Victoria smiled through tears. "I will." From that day forward, life changed for everyone. Victoria reduced her endless work schedule, choosing family over constant business travel. Ethan slowly allowed himself to believe happiness wasn't something he had lost forever. Weekend breakfasts replaced lonely mornings. School concerts became shared celebrations. Birthdays were filled with laughter instead of silence. Lily never tried to replace the mother she had lost. Instead, she gained another person who loved her unconditionally. Months later, Ethan asked Victoria to take one more walk beneath an old maple tree that still stood in the neighborhood where she and Emma had once played. There, beneath the same branches that had witnessed 2 little girls making an innocent childhood promise, Ethan held Victoria's hand. "I don't know if fate exists," he said softly, "but I know love finds remarkable ways to come back." He asked her to marry him. She said yes, before he could even finish. On their wedding day, Lily carried the same tiny heart-shaped locket down the aisle. Inside remained the faded photograph of two smiling little girls beneath a maple tree. Some promises survive distance, some survive time, and some wait patiently for years until the right people finally find their way back to one another. Because sometimes the smallest words, you and me, he, are powerful enough to change generations forever.